I say the personalization, the localization of relationships, even though in Bitcoin they can be international.
Absolutely. Let me take a specific example. You mentioned international. Venezuela is in serious trouble. Their financial system is collapsing, and the use of Bitcoin is exploding in Venezuela. If you want to get money out of Venezuela to purchase something, to let's say there's a story that I just read about a guy whose mother has cancer, and he's trying to get cancer drugs in the country, and it was a nightmare because he had to go through this incredibly complicated financial system with the banks, which are all sclerotic and broken and not functioning. All he had to do when
they all have computers, right?
Pardon?
They all have computers at those banks.
They do. They all have computers.
It's an advanced country.
That's right. You know what they say about computers? That if you know where you're going, they're great. But if you don't know where they're going, they'll just get you there faster. and that is unfortunately true. Now, the example that I want to mention here is that he solved this problem by turning to Bitcoin. And all he had to do that was download an app on his phone. That's it. There is no bureaucracy involved in telling him what he can do. There is no authority controlling what he can do. There are no borders controlling what he could do. He picks up the Bitcoin. He goes through a number of sites in the United States and other places that are specifically designed to use Bitcoin and purchase for you. Right now you can't purchase anything directly on Amazon, but there are sites that you can go to who will take your Bitcoin and turn around and purchase your goods for you at Amazon. So de facto,
and that site will use the digital dollar for that purchase.
Exactly. That you normally use the digital dollar. Now, what he wound up doing as a result is by just using his cell phone and no huge bureaucratic organization whatsoever, and a small business at the other end that would perform the interface for him to actually buy the drugs and get them back to him, he was able to wind up purchasing the cancer drugs that he needed for his mother, get them back in the country, and help her. And the system otherwise was dead.
And the Venezuelan postal system didn't notice or didn't inspect the imported product in the box, right?
Well, I don't know what the situation is in terms of physical controls on goods coming into Venezuela. That was not addressed in the article. What was addressed is the fact that if you want to move currency or money across the borders, there are very tight currency controls in Venezuela. And that's one of the bureaucratic messes that you have to go through.
And currency controls are the things today that you might say offend and oppress our listener. He has to either accept them and work through them or go around them. And that's what the digital economy and money and alternative means of payment is allowing, at least the prospect. These are things that maybe the listener's not going to do right now, but which his son or his daughter, no doubt, is much more open to considering.
Exactly. And we tend to think, we have the dollar is king. There are no currency controls. I can pretty much do whatever I want in terms of going across the border with money, and therefore that doesn't matter. But in fact, that's not true. If you want to take money outside the country, more than $10,000, you've got problems. There's currency controls. If you want to transfer money outside the country, even through the correct channels. I once tried to bring money from Canada, $30,000 that I had an account in there. I was told I had to close it because I was an American, and that's part of the growing trap that Americans face financially. And I said, okay, fine, I'll go ahead and close my brokerage account in Canada and bring the money back. It took me over a month to get the money from Canada into my bank account in the U.S., simply because of all of the paperwork that had to be filed for me to prove that that was really my money and I wasn't money laundering somebody else's money. None of that exists with Bitcoin. If you want to send money to your daughter who happens to be in France and has run out of money, bingo, just send her some Bitcoin. She can exchange Bitcoin in France for the ticket and come back. You can't do that easily with any other system.
Well, Sam Spade, what are some other points that are pointing in the same direction where the listener is trapped by certain legacy systems, legacy thinking here in Chattanooga and Helena County? What are some things that suggest an eventual liberation from them, or a workaround against them, or over them, or under them?
Well, I have my mind thinking on.
I was thinking of Airbnb, but we have a call. Yes. And by the way, we are here. This is David Tulis. We're talking with Sam Spade, and our number, I always seem to give the number when someone calls me, is 800-8949. 800-8949. And caller, thanks for calling. This is David Tulis. You're on the air with me and Sam Spade.
I did everything not to call. I even bit. Actually, there's a hole in the bottom of my lip. So I wouldn't call.
Is this Mike again?
I had to call. Because,
Mike, what is going on?
I have to explain this to
you
me.
need to get a life.
I kind of like digital currency going back and forth. But this is what I can't get beyond. 2 years ago, one Bitcoin traded for a Federal Reserve note for $2,400.
Uh-huh.
And this year it trades for $6,000 US.
That's right.
That's inflation.
No, that's deflation.
Yeah. No matter how you slice it, it's inflation. Come on,
it's
man.
Deflation.
If that means if I bought a box of
you're looking through the wrong end of the telescope, Mike.
It cost me $2,400 2 years ago. That same box is going to cost me $6,000, right?
No. Look, if you wanted to buy a hotel room no? 2 years ago with Bitcoin,
did you say no?
I said no. I said if you wanted to buy a hotel room 2 years ago with Bitcoin, it would have cost you far, far more Bitcoin than it costs you now. That's deflation. You can buy more.
Let's break this down. Let's not use economic terms that people use account. Let's break this down.
All right.
A hotel room cost me 100 Federal Reserve notes in 2015.
You're missing the point. Bitcoin is money.
No. I'm going to ask you a question. Please answer. How many Bitcoins would that cost me for the hotel room 2 years ago?
I don't know off the top of my head.
But guess.
$100. I don't know. Maybe 1/24th of a Bitcoin. I don't know.
Okay. Now, how much would that cost me today?
I don't know. Maybe 1/60th of a Bitcoin.
So the Bitcoin devalued.
No, it increased in value, Mike.
Because the Bitcoin is smaller. That's right.
The room costs less.
So what happens now is that I need less Bitcoins to purchase that hotel room.
That is exactly right. And that's one of the reasons why people keep looking at Bitcoin as a possible form of money, because you can. They're saying, "Wow, look, I can save my working capital in Bitcoin, and I get an added boost because that working capital goes up in value as opposed to dollars, where that working capital goes down in value." Now, let me just stress, I'm not saying Bitcoin is going to keep going up. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not giving investment advice on this. There are reasons to think that Bitcoin, in fact, could go down suddenly, just as much as there are to think it can go up suddenly. But I'm just saying, as past history of it continuing to go up, that represents deflation.
And who does that benefit and who does it hurt?
That benefits the people that are holding Bitcoin, I would say. That hurts the people that are holding dollars.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Okay, what moving on, Sam, what other things can we look at on the ledger of plus and minus for the listener? What is in the future that favors the listener, his liberty, his freedom of movement, lower costs in the marketplace?
Well,
Sam, what's another point? I was thinking of Airbnb, but what do you have in mind?
No, I think Airbnb is a very good example of that. There's many other examples as well. The Amazon situation, in which you now have a marketplace that's much wider because of the existence of the internet. It's resulted in a number of online stores that you can shop at with a diversity of products that never existed before in a local retail-only environment. But Airbnb is an excellent example. Of course, Uber is one that is very widely looked at and understood before. And both Uber and Airbnb represent part of what's called the sharing economy. And the point of the sharing economy is that we always have excess resources that we don't use. We always buy more than we need because you never can tell what the demand will be. So if we're worried about, let's say, having enough space in our house for the kids to come home from college, we get a bigger house, and that room sits empty most of the time because the kids don't come home from college. I just sent my kids off. They came and they visited, they stayed, they were here for a week and a half. They'll probably come back in another 4 years. And in the meantime, I have an empty room in my house for 4 years. The advantage of this kind of system, this sharing system, is that you can take a resource that you have that's not being taken advantage of, that's sitting there idle, and use that to produce a cash flow. You can wind up producing money from it by keeping it up and running it out.
Uber does that with your car.
Pardon?
And Uber, just to remind the listener, does that with your car.
Exactly.
You and your car have free time, and you become a provider, a contractor with Uber, and you provide your car and in service.
Exactly. And I think it's interesting because one of the things that I believe is going to happen down the pipe with both of these systems is that they are both very centralized functions. They're a centralized way of dealing with a decentralized opportunity. And that's not going to be a long-term stable situation.
So the sharing economy, Sam Spade, you're suggesting, will have Uber-like services in the future where there's a local app. You don't have to have a national multi-billion-dollar company with its servers to stand in place of organizer. It can be done locally in a decentralized fashion.
Exactly. What you'll have is an eBay sort of environment in which everybody is putting up spaces that they want to rent. They're offering it to anybody else that wants it. And there is no overall riding authority trying to control what's going on. It winds up being a very open and therefore very inexpensive and efficient marketplace.
Well, I'm in a cost-sharing ministry for Christian people called Samaritan Ministries, Sam, and it's centralized. There's an organization. The organization at the heart of it sends out information on. It takes in information on who has medical needs, and it allocates to all the other members to whom they must write their check for that month. So I write a check for $495 to another family, goes directly to pay that party's medical expenses when we pray for these people as well. But why does that have to be in another state? Could it not be here where all the payments back and forth are in a local economy? It seems to me that that's something that's very soon ahead, I'm thinking, in that field.
I believe it is. I don't know that I would say everything is going to go that way, but I think more and more you're going to see structures that were centralized are going to become decentralized. One of the examples that I see very close on the horizon is asset registration. The blockchain has caused people to look at this, and in fact, people have already been doing it with Bitcoin. They have a kind of an app, an add-on that you can put onto the Bitcoin system that tags a Bitcoin and uses it as a marker for an asset. And the way that would work is that if you had, for instance, property registration, you could wind up taking advantage of registering your property, not by going through some state agency, which is slow and cumbersome and takes quite a bit of time for the transfer and is expensive, but instead do it through a common shared database, which is what the blockchain is, and have that be immutably stuck there, uncounterfeitable.
So records, we have clerks of county that now they don't just record marriages, they license them. So we have the problem of the record becoming a license, which is a great evil in the progressive era.
Exactly.
We can have a private recording of marriages, a private recording of car ownership, land titles.
Exactly.
Sam?
Exactly. Land, cars, any asset. In fact, one of the biggest assets, frankly, are stock certificates. And if you know anything about what goes on in Wall Street, you'll realize that is rife with inefficiencies and corruption as well. The concept of there being counterfeit stock certificates and counterfeit games being played is huge. It's a very scary situation for anybody that's really trying to invest in honest equity nowadays in this country.
So in our chart, Sam Spade, we have the listener. It's about the listener. On the right side, we have good. On the left side, we have bad. So on the bad is that we're stuck in a bad economy. We have centralized systems that control the medium of exchange, that control medical insurance, you're suggesting, that control hotel stays and cars, and then even registrations of marriages, public pieces of property such as cars and houses. On the good side, we have things to look forward to, right? And those will be the fruits of decentralization.
Yes, absolutely.
Is that fair to say?
Yes, that is very fair to say.
So we have the good things are prospective. They're ahead, and we're looking ahead, hoping for the gains in technology, gains in the spirit of liberty. Is that fair to say?
I think that's a very good way to sum it up. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Sam Spade, for joining us.
Thank you.
This is David Tulis. We're glad you're giving us just a couple of minutes of your time here on Nooga Radio 92.7 and also 95.3 HD4. That's high definition digital radio. Powerful signals amplified. Not AM, but FM. David Tulis, thanks.
The Tennessee Valley's news talk leader. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.